Hi, and welcome to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. Today we want to continue our discussion about practical ways to increase morale in your workplace. Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. I am Kale Houser. Thank you so much for joining me today. We are continuing our discussion about increasing morale in your workplace and practical ways to do so. I hope you found the first one beneficial. I certainly didn't make it through as many practical tips and suggestions that I'd hoped to. We only really made it through two, and that was, at the base level, connecting with your employee, learning their name, learning about them, likes, dislikes, history, family, school, hobbies, all those types of things, right? That kind of how you create personal connections with other people. You need to do that in your workplace. And then feedback, asking for feedback from them, especially when you've had a major or fundamental change in your workplace environment. All right, so to continue, we're going to talk about, first of all, esteem. And now it's important to recognize that this is a process. This is a building block process. And I may not be exactly in order of, what may be appropriate or not. That's more for you to determine of how fast you want to move through this process and what's appropriate for your organization. Because certainly, there's some things I say may not be practical or appropriate, and there's other things that may be more suited to your organization. So I'll leave that up to you, and I'm certainly willing to discuss it. You can always drop me a line at kalehouserleadership.com if you need further guidance or help or a suggestion on how to do that. But think about this as a process, as a building block. So all right, now I know everybody's names, right? That's kind of fundamental baseline. Now we're going to build on that of, hey, Jack, we just instituted this new scheduling thing. What do you think of it? Or do you have suggestions of how we could change it? Okay. And a third level, so now as we get into number 3 is really esteem. And that comes down to recognition, right? So you want to be able to esteem those that you work with, those that support you, especially when they've done outstanding work, when they've done something that is above and beyond, when they've done something outside of their job duties that's actually beneficial for your company. And this honestly does not come naturally to a lot of people. Paying compliments does not come naturally. It is a practiced and learned skill that is important that you practice and learn it. If you want to have a successful organization, you need to be able to provide recognition to other people, to be able to esteem them, especially in public, right? So if you're not a natural public speaker and a natural, real personable person that can really think on the fly, and maybe you need to plan this out and create a little bit more of a formal process, which is totally okay. The important part is that it's getting done, that people are recognized and they are esteemed especially when they do something that's above and beyond. Because otherwise, guess what? People are just going to stop doing things that are above and beyond. They're going to stop doing things that contribute that extra little bit to your organization, because after they do it and nothing happens, they'll sit back and go on, what's the point? Especially if it didn't impact them financially directly. They didn't go above and beyond to reach out to that customer and they got an extra commission for a sale that they closed. But if it's something more indirectly, like, hey, they went above and beyond and they handled a customer complaint that maybe necessarily didn't provide that immediate need, but it certainly created customer satisfaction for the long-term health of the company and the ongoing relationship with that client. You want to be able to, be in a position where you see that, right? You have to have your kind of pulse on your organization, whether that's through other managers that are underneath you that are talking with those level of workers, or you yourself as the business owner need to be this goes back to connection with your employees, of being able to see when people go through this and they provide that value to your organization. So being able to recognize them is very important. And I'm not necessarily talking about employee of the quarter or employee of the year, right? Because the military is very good at that. They have, NCO of the quarter, NCO of the year, senior officer, we had company grade officer, field grade officer, different levels of officer based on your rank. And same thing, airman, in the Air Force, airman, NCO, senior NCO. So, you didn't have a master sergeant competing against an A1C, which is younger rank. And same thing, you didn't have a lieutenant competing against a major for these things, but the Air Force was good at that. But that was all very formalized. And honestly, as a young commander, flight commander, dude, it took a lot of time. And mainly it was because of all the formal way you had to do it in order to nominate somebody for these awards. And ultimately, while it didn't necessarily earn that person who earned the award, whether it be CGO of the quarter, employee of the quarter, employee of the year, it was something that affected them down the line for come promotion, because it went into your catalog of list of things that you had done, and that it implied greatness. Like, hey, you did so well that you got a yearly award or different level types of awards. But I'm not talking necessarily about those official recognition type of things, because those are important. It is important to have top salesmen. It is important to have, like, hey, we met our quota for number of clients we closed this month. We met our quota for the amount of catering events that we did, and the amount of food we served, all those types of things of however you measure success and revenue in your company. Those are important, those official things, but one, don't make it a burden to your people in order to do those official recognition things. It should be fairly easy and straightforward, certainly as your process for choosing somebody is. It shouldn't be very convoluted or subjective, so that way people understand they've got a fair chance, and it's not just the favored employee that gets it. They can look back at numbers or a graph and say, yeah, Jeff over here did really great because he did X, Y, and Z, and his numbers show that. But I'm talking more, the importance of this is kind of on the fly. Like, as something comes across your desk or comes across your purview that says, hey, Ricky over there was really phenomenal in how he interacted with that customer, because that customer was super pissed off about something that happened that may or may not have been our fault. It may not have been anything to have anything to do with your company, but Ricky was able to handle that and keep that relationship in the positive versus severing that relationship, or having that customer sever that relationship with your company. So getting good at esteeming your people, esteeming your teammates, will go miles as far as being able to, one, connect with them, right? Everything goes back to connection, but also building that morale overall in your company, because people see that. They see as their coworker is, Liz is standing up over there getting recognized because she did so phenomenal at handling a customer, or she saw a safety hazard and she handled it on her own, even though that wasn't her department or it wasn't her thing. And you recognize that, like, hey, we appreciate you we recognize that this wasn't necessarily your job, quote unquote job, and we recognize that this wasn't necessarily your responsibility to do, but you saw the need and you cared enough about us, your fellow coworkers, and you cared enough about the company, and you cared enough about me as the leader of this company, that you took action and you did something about it. So I want to recognize you for that. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. And as people see that, and you doing that with their fellow teammates, guess what? It kind of, it starts to work on people a little bit, works on their heartstrings a little bit, and like, yeah, that's awesome that they did that. And then that may not be the motivation for it, but it removes a barrier to them doing that, right? Instead of them going, why should I pick up that garbage? Nobody cares, right? It goes, oh, we here have a culture, we here have a overall feeling in our workplace that when we see garbage in our parking lot or garbage in our store, we pick it up and we take care of it because we care about it, right? This is about building that culture, which is what morale goes back to. All right, so that was number 3. So number 4, and again, these are all levels, and these may or may not directly apply to your situation, but I want you to encourage to figure out how it may. So this comes back to forced fun, okay? So, and write this down. So planning a fun event, possibly like once a month during the week, to say, as a way of saying thank you to your team. Let me tell you, we had in the Air Force, in my military career, in all different squadrons, we had what was called mandatory fun, okay? And you know why it was called mandatory fun? Because more often than not, it was outside of our duty hours. And yes, in the military, we are 24/7. We can be called to war at any time or any situation, and we understand that. But going to play putt-putt golf on the weekend, and I talked about this before about how to kill morale, is taking away people's free time outside. No matter how good your organization is, people have stuff to do outside of work, other priorities, whether it be family or friends, all those things are just hobbies. Like, I just want to not think about anything and not interact because I'm a super introvert and I need that time to recharge and not be around other people, and they don't want to feel forced into doing mandatory, quote unquote, mandatory fun events. However, this should not preclude you from doing these events within the work week, okay? And this is where you really have to be creative, because this is based on your location, based on the type of business you have, the hours you work, the number of people you have, okay? This may just be something in your office that you have just a little mini, holiday party of some sort. Easter's coming up here. We have a little hey, I grabbed a bunch of chocolate eggs and I hid them around the office and everyone's got 5 minutes to find as many as you can, kind of thing. Just make it fun. Make it something that people can engage with each other and with you that is outside of the normal work construct. Okay, that's the point of it, is to create these connections that, maybe somebody brings up like, oh yeah, when I was a child, my favorite thing to do was go to my grandparents, and my grandfather always did this awesome job at hiding eggs for us, and it was like one of my most treasured memories of going to my grandparents as a child. Okay, and those are the type of moments that you're trying to create as you're building morale in your company, because those are showing that people are vested, they're interested, and they're willing to share about themselves. Okay, so understand though that this could be a slow growth process, right? The redwoods in California weren't built overnight. They weren't grown overnight. This took a long time to do, and depending on where you're starting from, this may be a long process for you too. Especially if you're planning an external event where you've got to go off-site from wherever your work location is, you may not have everyone show up. That is entirely possible, and you should be prepared for that. You should understand that you are laying a groundwork and a foundation. Don't give up just because your first event to the bowling alley or whatever, even if it was like a lunch bowling alley or an afternoon bowling alley type of thing, didn't work out and people didn't show up and people didn't have fun, or they felt they were only there just for a little bit, right? Push through, man. Push through. Make sure you don't give up, because they are, again, seeing that, is this just a one-off, like, oh, this is another just good idea that Kale had, and, this is super annoying, this isn't going to last. But as it goes on and you continue to do these events, people, again, those barriers will start to break down and people will be more open and willing to do it, especially as stories start filtering around the workplace of, man, I couldn't believe it, man, I'm starting to run out of names to use as examples. Steven over there, man, he got 3 strikes in a row. I've never seen that before. That's amazing. Oh, and then you find out, well, Steven's on a bowling team and nobody ever knew that. And he's like, he paid his way through college playing, doing bowling and all this kind of stuff in tournaments. And you're like, what? That's amazing. And even though bowling may not be your thing, and this could be an example that's totally falling short on everyone else, but I knew somebody that paid their way through college on the quasi-professional bowling. I don't know much about it. Didn't know that was a thing, but it's a thing. And that may provide that opportunity for you to learn more about Jeff. Okay, and now Jeff is like, oh, I was embarrassed to say it because, not everyone has the same love affair with bowling that I do, but now it kind of gives that opportunity to connect, all right? So that theme is connection. And then ring, just like the power bar in your video game health meter goes up, once you collect those hearts, your morale starts to just incrementally just tick up, because people are making connections, and they're making connections to you for providing those opportunities, and they're making connections to your organization for creating that environment that they feel a part of. Okay. So we've been going again for a while. I managed to only make it through 2. This is a little bit more involved than what I anticipated, but I want to make sure you understand and get a fuller picture versus just giving you, because I could easily just say, hey, 1, do this, 2, do this, 3, do this. But I want to make sure you understand the intent, the purpose, and the encouragement to don't give up, to keep going as you're pushing through some of these events. Because, again, depending on how bad, I don't want to say that too harshly, but how poor the morale in your organization may be, you may be starting from a place that really takes a lot of work to get people out of that negative mindset. But don't give up. It'll be worth it. It is totally worth it. Rome wasn't built overnight, and certainly a positive workplace isn't built overnight, no matter where it is, okay? You can do things that are purposely put in place to make it so, though, in a short amount of time. So thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to providing more ways to increase morale in your organization as we continue this discussion. Shoot me an email if you're liking this so far or not liking it. If you think this is totally bogus, please let me know. I'm always open to suggestions and feedback and criticism. Hopefully constructive criticism, but criticism nonetheless. Have a fantastic day no matter where you're at in the world. Talk to you later. Bye.